right now, at this very moment. A silent crisis is building that will shake every grocery store in America by mid-2026. Experts are warning us. Supply chains are breaking down, and the signs are everywhere if you're willing to look. Imagine walking into your local store and finding empty shelves where bread used to be, bare coolers where milk should sit, and desperate families fighting over the last few cans of food. This isn't some distant nightmare or Hollywood movie. This is the reality heading straight toward us. The families who prepare today will eat tomorrow, but those who wait will watch their children go hungry while they scramble for scraps that no longer exist. The time to act isn't next month or next week, it's right now, today. Before the panic begins and before it's too late to protect the people you love most in this world. Number 1. Canned proteins. Protein is not optional when it comes to survival. It's the fuel that keeps your body strong, your muscles intact, and your mind sharp enough to make the critical decisions that will keep your family alive during the hardest times. When you look at what happens during every major crisis throughout history, whether it's war, economic collapse, or natural disaster, the protein sources always vanish first because everyone instinctively knows that carbohydrates alone won't sustain human life for very long. Canned meats and fish become more valuable than gold when grocery stores go empty, because families will do absolutely anything to keep their children from losing weight and wasting away before their eyes. Right now, you can still find shelves stocked with canned chicken, tuna, salmon, sardines, Spam, corned beef, and Vienna sausages. But the smart people who understand what's coming are already buying these items by the case, while neighbors walk past without a second thought. The science behind protein requirements is straightforward and non-negotiable. The average adult needs 50 to 60 grams of protein every single day just to maintain basic health and prevent the body from consuming its own muscle tissue for fuel. Children need 20 to 40 grams depending on their age and growth stage. And during stressful crisis situations, those needs actually increase, because the body burns through resources faster when living under constant pressure and uncertainty. Canned proteins solve this problem beautifully because they provide shelf-stable nutrition that lasts 3 to 5 years without refrigeration, without special storage conditions, and without any complicated preparation beyond opening the can and eating the contents. A single can of chicken gives you about 30 grams of protein. A can of tuna provides 25 grams. Even a small can of sardines delivers 15 grams along with omega-3 fatty acids that protect your heart and brain function. But here, most people don't realize until it's far too late. The protein supply chain is already breaking down right in front of our eyes. Bird flu outbreaks have forced farmers to destroy millions of chickens and turkeys across multiple states. It's driving poultry prices up 35% compared to just 2 years ago. Commercial fishing operations are catching fewer fish every season as ocean populations decline from overfishing and climate changes that disrupt breeding patterns. Processing plants have been shutting down due to labor shortages, equipment failures, and regulations that make it nearly impossible for smaller operations to stay in business. The ranchers who raise cattle and pigs are struggling with feed costs that have doubled, which means many are selling off their herds early rather than losing money on every animal they raise. All of these factors combine to create a perfect storm where protein becomes increasingly scarce and expensive, and the canned versions that used to sit ignored on bottom shelves suddenly become precious commodities that stores can keep in stock. Look at the prices right now in U.S. The trend accelerating. Canned tuna that used to cost $1 now costs $1.40. Chicken breast cans have jumped from $2 to $3.50, and salmon cans that were $4 are now pushing $6 or $7 each. These increases will seem like bargains when you're looking back from 2026 trying to find any protein at any price to feed your family. You need to stock at least 100 cans of various proteins per person as an absolute minimum for a 3-month supply. And if you're serious about long-term security, you should be thinking about 200 to 300 cans that give you variety and flexibility. Store them in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. Rotate your stock using the first in, first out method, so nothing expires before you can use it. And check those expiration dates every few months to stay organized. Dan T. Wait until your neighbors are panicking. Fill your pantry with canned proteins today while you still can, because tomorrow, the shelves might already be stripped bare. Number 2. Rice and grains, when the crisis hits and people finally realize what's coming. Rice and grains will be the first foods to disappear from every store shelf in your neighborhood. Think about it for just a moment. Rice feeds more than half of the entire world's population every single day. And wheat provides the foundation for bread, pasta, and countless other foods that families depend on to survive. These aren't luxury items or specialty products that only some people buy. These are the absolute basics that every household needs. Which means when panic buying starts, everyone will be racing to grab whatever they can find. Major grain-producing countries are already facing devastating droughts that have destroyed millions of acres of crops. And governments around the world are quietly beginning to restrict exports to protect their own populations first. History shows us exactly what happens during food crisis, during the economic collapse in Venezuela. Rice shelves emptied within hours and never refilled for months, leaving families desperate and starving. Rice, ice, and tea just filling and affordable one of the most perfect survival foods ever discovered by humanity. White rice, when stored properly in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, can last 20 to 30 years without losing its nutritional value or ability to sustain life. Brown rice has more nutrients and fiber, but it only lasts about 6 months because the oils in the bran layer go rancid. So for long-term stockpiling, you need to focus on white rice in all its varieties. Jasmine rice brings a fragrant aroma to meals that can lift spirits during dark times. Basmati rice cooks up light and fluffy for variety. And plain long-grain white rice gives you the most food for your money, while lasting the longest in storage. But rice alone, and tea and nephew, need to think about wheat berries that you can grind into fresh flour for decades. Steel-cut oats that provide heart-healthy breakfasts. Quinoa that delivers complete protein, and barley that stretches soups and stews to feed more mouths with less. The warning signs are already flashing red for anyone paying attention to what is really happening in our world. Grain prices have climbed steadily over the past 2 years, and industry experts are predicting they'll double or even triple by the time we reach mid-2026, when supply can no longer meet demand. Port delays are backing up grain shipments for weeks at a time. Transportation costs have skyrocketed. And warehouse fires at major grain storage facilities have destroyed supplies that can never be replaced. Right now, today, you can still walk into a store and buy 50-pound bags of rice for reasonable prices. But that window of opportunity is closing faster than most people realize. Every family should have at least 50 to 100 pounds of rice and grains stored for each person in their household. A bare minimum for 3 to 6 months of survival, and honestly, you should be thinking about much more if you want true security. Storing grains properly isn't complicated, but you have to do it right, or you'll lose everything to moisture, insects, and oxygen that breaks down the food over time. Get food-grade plastic buckets with tight sealing lids. Use Mylar bags inside those buckets, and add oxygen absorbers before you seal everything up to create an environment where nothing can survive to destroy your stockpile. Don't wait another day thinking that someone else will handle this problem or that the government will come to rescue. When your family is hungry, start building your grain foundation right now. Today, before these affordable staples become luxury items that only the wealthy can obtain. Number 3. Cooking oils and fats. Most people completely overlook cooking oils and fats when they think about emergency preparedness. And that is a mistake that will cost them dearly when the crisis arrives and they realize too late what they were missing. Futs aren't just about making food taste better or frying up a meal. They read the most calorie-dense food source available to humans. Packing 9 calories into every single gram compared to only 4 calories from proteins and carbohydrates. When food becomes scarce and you're trying to stretch every meal to feed more mouths, those concentrated calories from fats become the difference between maintaining your strength and slowly wasting away despite having a pantry full of rice and beans. Your body needs dietary fats to absorb essential vitamins, maintain healthy skin and hair, regulate hormones, and keep your brain functioning properly under stress, which makes oils and fats absolutely critical for long-term survival. The types of oils you stockpile matter more than most people realize because each variety has different storage characteristics and uses that you need to understand before you spend your money. Vegetable oil and canola oil are affordable workhorses that last 1 to 2 years when stored properly. Perfect for everyday cooking and baking needs. Coconut oil extends that shelf life to 2 or 3 years and provides medium-chain triglycerides that your body can convert directly into energy without complicated digestion. Olive oil brings heart-healthy benefits and rich flavor. You have to store it in dark glass bottles away from light and heat, or it will turn rancid within months. Shortening stays solid at room temperature and works beautifully for baking, lasting up to 2 years on your shelf without special attention. Global edible oil supplies are collapsing faster than the mainstream media wants to admit, and the reasons stack up like a tower ready to fall. Indonesia, which produces more palm oil than any other country on earth, has restricted exports to deal with domestic shortages and political pressure. Ukraine used to be a massive sunflower oil exporter before war destroyed their agricultural infrastructure and shut down processing facilities indefinitely. Crop failures in Canada have devastated canola production, and drought across South America has killed soybean crops that should have become cooking oil for millions of families. On top of all these agricultural disasters, governments around the world are diverting more and more edible oil production into biofuel manufacturing. It's literally burning food to power vehicles while people go hungry. History teaches us harsh lessons if we're willing to learn from the past. During World War II, cooking fats and oils were so scarce that governments imposed strict rationing systems and people saved every drop of bacon grease like it was liquid gold. Families traded precious jewelry and heirlooms for small containers of lard because they understood that without fats their bodies would fail no matter how much bread and potatoes they managed to eat. Prices have already jumped 50 to 60% over the past year, and analysts predict they'll double again before this crisis peaks in 2026. You need to stockpile 5 to 10 gallons of various oils per family member right now, while they are still available in stores. And you need to store them correctly in dark, cool places where heat and light can break down the delicate molecular bonds that hold these fats together. Keep bottles tightly sealed. Consider buying ghee or lard for even longer storage. And understand that when the crisis hits, cooking oil will become a black market commodity that desperate people will pay almost anything to obtain. Dan TB, one of those desperate people, act today and secure your family. Fat supplies before the shelves go empty and stay empty. Number 4. Salt, sugar, and honey. Salt, sugar, and honey have kept humanity alive for thousands of years. And when the modern world collapses, these ancient survival foods will prove their worth all over again too. The family's smart enough to stockpile them now. Salt is so much more than just a flavor enhancer that makes your meals taste better. It's an absolute biological necessity that your body cannot function without, period. Every cell in your body depends on sodium to maintain fluid balance, transmit nerve signals, contract muscles, including your heart, and regulate blood pressure that keeps you conscious and alive. Without adequate salt intake, your body starts shutting down within days, causing confusion, weakness, seizures, and eventually death from electrolyte imbalance. Yet most families have maybe 1 or 2 containers of salt in their kitchen right now, which would last them perhaps a month if they were lucky. And they never stop to think about what happens when those containers run empty and stores have nothing left to sell. The beautiful thing about salt is that it literally lasts forever when you keep it dry. Archaeologists have found salt deposits from ancient civilizations. They're still perfectly edible after thousands of years buried underground. You can stockpile 50 or 100 pounds of salt today, and your great-grandchildren could use it a century from now without any loss of quality or effectiveness. But salt does far more than keep your body functioning. It's the oldest and most reliable food preservation method ever discovered. The technology that allowed humans to survive harsh winters and long journeys before refrigeration existed. You can preserve meats by packing them in salt, cure fish to last for months without spoiling, pickle vegetables to extend their life beyond the growing season, and create fermented foods that actually become more nutritious through the preservation process. Different types serve different purposes. Table salt works fine for cooking and preservation. Sea salt brings trace minerals your body needs. Himalayan pink salt adds those minerals plus a beautiful color. And iodized salt protects your thyroid gland from disorders that can destroy your health. Mining disruptions, transportation breakdowns, and processing plant closures are already creating salt shortages in various regions. And when panic buying starts, you'll see these shelves empty faster than you can imagine. Sugar stands right alongside salt as a survival essential that people tragically underestimate until crisis forces them to understand its value. White sugar provides instant energy when your body desperately needs quick fuel. And more importantly, it never goes bad when stored in airtight containers away from moisture. Brown sugar requires slightly more care because the molasses content attracts moisture, but both types will sustain life and preserve foods for years when you use them correctly. Sugar lets you make jams and jellies from fruits that would otherwise rot, preserves berries and stone fruits in heavy syrups, and provides the carbohydrates that keep your brain functioning when stress threatens to overwhelm your ability to think clearly. Honey rises above both salt and sugar as the ultimate survival superfood that nature designed specifically to last forever, without any human intervention whatsoever. Archaeologists opened Egyptian tombs that had been sealed for over 3,000 years and found jars of honey still perfectly edible, still sweet, still ready to nourish anyone who tasted it. Honey never spoils because its chemical composition creates an environment where bacteria and microorganisms simply cannot survive. The low moisture content and acidic pH make it naturally sterile and stable. Beyond nutrition, honey heals wounds better than many modern antibiotics. Stews coughs and sore throats, provides quick energy that doesn't crash your blood sugar, and can be used as a natural preservative for other foods. But honey supplies face serious threats from colony collapse disorder that's killing bee populations across the planet, climate changes that disrupt flowering patterns bees depend on, and pesticides that poison the insects we need for pollination. Prices have already climbed 25 to 30%. And beekeepers warn that costs will continue rising as production falls year after year. You need to stockpile 50 to 100 pounds of both salt and sugar per person in your household, and you should have at least several gallons of raw honey, stored in sealed glass jars at room temperature where it will wait patiently until you need it. These items are incredibly affordable right now, compared to what they'll cost during the crisis, and they take up relatively little space for the immense value they provide. Store salt and sugar in airtight containers with moisture absorbers to prevent clumping. Keep everything in a cool, dry location. And understand that these ancient preservation foods gave our ancestors the power to survive famines and disasters that killed unprepared neighbors. Don't let your family become another statistic. Stockpile these essentials today. Number 5. Dried and canned milk. Dairy products represent one of the most critical nutritional categories that will vanish almost overnight when the food crisis reaches your community. And the families without adequate milk supplies will watch their children suffer from deficiencies that could have been easily prevented with simple preparation. Calcium isn't optional for human health. It builds strong bones and teeth, regulates muscle contractions, including your heartbeat, enables blood clotting that stops you from bleeding to death from minor cuts, and supports nerve transmission that allows your brain to communicate with every part of your body. Children who don't get enough calcium during their growing years develop weak bones that break easily, stunted growth that affects them for life, and dental problems that cause pain and infection. Elderly family members lose bone density rapidly without adequate calcium intake, leading to fractures from simple falls that can become life-threatening emergencies. When medical care becomes scarce or unavailable during crisis conditions, dairy products provide not just calcium, but also high-quality protein, vitamin D, that helps your body absorb that calcium, vitamin B12 that maintains healthy blood cells, and phosphorus that works together with calcium to build bone tissue. Powdered milk solves the dairy storage problem so perfectly that it almost seems designed specifically for emergency preparedness and long-term survival situations. When you store milk powder properly in sealed containers with oxygen absorbers, it lasts 20 to 25 years without losing nutritional value or the ability to reconstitute into drinkable milk that tastes remarkably close to fresh. Single 50-pound bag of milk powder takes up less space than a small suitcase, but provides the equivalent of dozens of gallons of fresh milk that would require massive refrigeration and would spoil within days. You can mix it with water to drink it straight. Use it in cooking and baking exactly like fresh milk. Make yogurt through simple fermentation. Create cheese with basic supplies and techniques, and even produce cream for coffee or recipes by adjusting the powder-to-water ratio. The dairy industry is collapsing under pressures that most consumers never see or think about until empty shelves force them to pay attention. Feed costs for dairy cattle have increased by 45% over the past 2 years as drought destroys hay crops and corn prices skyrocket from export demand and biofuel production. Small family dairy farms are shutting down every single week because they lose money on every gallon of milk they produce. Unable to compete with factory operations or absorb the rising costs of fuel, labor, equipment repairs, and regulatory compliance. Processing plants have closed across rural America, forcing remaining dairies to truck their milk hundreds of miles further at costs that make the economics impossible. Water scarcity in major dairy-producing states like California threatens the alfalfa and grass that cows need to produce milk. And climate changes are stressing herds with heat that reduces production and increases disease. International supplies that America has relied on for decades are drying up as New Zealand and Australia face their own drought conditions, and their governments consider export restrictions to protect domestic needs first. Prices for powdered milk have already jumped 30 to 40%. And industry analysts predict they'll double by the time we reach 2026, when supply can no longer keep up with desperate demand from panicking families. You need at least 50 to 75 pounds of milk powder stored for each person in your household to provide a full year of calcium. And dairy nutrition, and honestly, you should consider stockpiling even more if you have young children or elderly parents who depend on you for their survival. Non-dairy alternatives exist for people with lactose intolerance. Almond milk powder, soy milk powder, and oat milk powder all store well, though generally not as long as traditional dairy milk powder, and usually at higher costs per serving. Storage is straightforward but absolutely critical to protect your investment and your family's future nutrition. Keep milk powder in its original packaging if it's sealed in cans with long expiration dates, or transfer bulk powder into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside food-grade buckets with tight sealing lids. Store everything in the coolest, darkest place you have available. Heat and light degrade the proteins and fats over time, and moisture causes clumping that ruins the powder's ability to dissolve properly. During the Great Depression, families who had stored milk powder watched their children stay healthy, while kids developed rickets and other deficiency diseases from lack of dairy nutrition. During World War II rationing, powdered milk became so valuable that people traded jewelry and family heirlooms for small quantities. Dante, wait until you re one of those desperate parents willing to trade anything for nutrition your children need. Secure your family dairy supplies right now, today, before prices double again and availability disappears completely. Number 6. Canned vegetables and fruits. While everyone focuses on calories and protein during emergency planning, the silent killer that nobody talks about is vitamin deficiency that will devastate families who thought they were prepared but only stockpiled grains and beans. Fresh produce is wonderful when grocery stores stay stocked and your refrigerator keeps running. But the moment power grids fail or supply chains break down, every piece of fresh fruit and every vegetable in your kitchen starts rotting within days and becomes completely worthless. Canned produce solves this problem by locking in vitamins and minerals at peak ripeness through a preservation process that keeps nutrition available for years without any refrigeration or special storage requirements. Your body needs vitamin A for healthy vision and immune function, vitamin C to prevent scurvy and heal wounds, vitamin K for blood clotting, folate for cell division and DNA repair, potassium for heart rhythm and muscle function, and fiber to keep your digestive system working properly. Without these essential nutrients, your health collapses even if your stomach feels full from eating rice and canned meat every single day. History proves this truth through the suffering of people who learn these lessons the hardest possible way. Sailors on long ocean voyages died by the thousands from scurvy until ships started carrying citrus fruits and eventually canned produce that provided the vitamin C their bodies desperately needed. During World War II, populations in occupied countries developed beriberi, pellagra, and other deficiency diseases because they had calories from rationed grains but no access to fruits and vegetables that provided complete nutrition. The human body is an incredibly complex machine that requires dozens of different vitamins and minerals to function correctly. And you cannot get all of them from just grains, proteins, and fats, no matter how much of those foods you eat. Canned vegetables and fruits fill those nutritional gaps that would otherwise destroy your health during extended crisis periods when fresh produce simply doesn't exist. The agricultural system that supplies canned produce to your local stores is breaking down from multiple directions at the same time. Extreme weather destroys crops in the field before they can even be harvested. Floods drown tomato plants in California. Droughts shrivel green beans in the Midwest. Late freezes kill peach orchards in Georgia, and hurricanes flatten vegetable fields across the South. Labor shortages leave produce rotting unpicked because there aren't enough workers to harvest the crops during the narrow window when they re-ripen ready. Transportation costs have tripled in some regions, making it economically impossible to move low-value vegetables from farms to processing plants to warehouses to stores. Processing plants themselves struggle with equipment breakdowns, maintenance backlogs, and energy costs that make operations barely profitable even when crops are available. Aluminum can shortages affect how much produce can actually be canned, even when everything else works correctly. And manufacturing capacity simply cannot expand fast enough to meet the surge in demand that is coming. Smart preppers focus on specific canned vegetables that provide the most nutrition and versatility for your stockpile. Green beans give you vitamin K and fiber. Corn provides carbohydrates and some protein. Peas deliver folate and plant protein. Carrots pack massive amounts of vitamin A for eye health. Tomatoes serve as the foundation for countless recipes, while providing vitamin C and lycopene. Mixed vegetables offer variety that prevents flavor fatigue, and canned potatoes stretch meals while adding potassium and filling calories. For fruits, focus on peaches and pears that provide vitamin C and natural sweetness. Pineapple that brings tropical flavor and digestive enzymes. Mandarin oranges packed with vitamin C. Fruit cocktail for variety. And applesauce that soothes upset stomachs and works perfectly for children who might resist other foods during stressful times. You absolutely must address the BPA concern that worries many health-conscious families when they think about stockpiling canned goods. Bisphenol A is a chemical used in some can linings that may have hormone-disrupting effects with long-term exposure. But you need to understand that the health risks from malnutrition and vitamin deficiency during a food crisis are thousands of times more dangerous than any potential BPA exposure from canned foods. That said, many manufacturers now produce BPA-free canned goods. And you can also find vegetables and fruits in glass jars that eliminate the concern entirely if you are willing to pay the higher prices. Most canned produce lasts 2 to 5 years on your shelf, with tomato products typically on the shorter end because their acidity gradually degrades the can lining over time. Check expiration dates regularly, rotate your stock using the first in first out method, and store cans in moderate temperatures away from moisture that causes rust and compromises the seals. Current prices tell the story of what coming canned vegetables have increased 20 to 25% compared to just 2 years ago, and canned fruits have jumped 30% with predictions of further increases as crop failures and processing problems continue to worsen. You need a minimum of 200 to 300 cans of assorted vegetables and fruits per person to maintain proper nutrition throughout a major crisis, and you should focus on variety to prevent the flavor fatigue that makes people stop eating even when food is available. Grocery stores typically stock only 3 to 7 days worth of inventory for their customer base, which means when panic buying starts, those shelves will empty in hours and stay empty for weeks or months. Don't wait until you're re-standing in an empty aisle wondering how you prevent your children from developing scurvy or night blindness from vitamin deficiencies. Build your canned produce stockpile immediately while stores still have supplies available at prices you can afford. Number 7. Pasta and instant foods. When panic hits and families finally realize the crisis is real, pasta and instant foods will disappear from store shelves faster than almost anything else because people instinctively reach for the foods they know how to prepare quickly without complicated recipes or special equipment. Think about what happens during hurricane warnings or snowstorm predictions. The bread aisle empties first, and the pasta aisle gets stripped bare, and the instant noodles section looks like a tornado hit it within hours of the first news reports. These convenience foods represent comfort and familiarity during stressful times. They require minimal fuel and water to prepare when resources become scarce. Children actually enjoy eating them without complaints. And the prices are so affordable that even families on tight budgets can stockpile significant quantities right now before costs skyrocket. Dried pasta has an absolutely incredible shelf life of 8 to 10 years when stored in a cool, dry place, making it one of the best values in emergency food storage for the nutrition and calories you get per dollar spent. You need variety in your pasta stockpile to prevent the flavor fatigue that makes people stop eating even when they re-hungry. Spaghetti works for classic Italian dishes and Asian stir-fries. Macaroni becomes the foundation for mac and cheese that comforts children during scary times. Penne holds sauces beautifully in its tube shape. Egg noodles create hearty casseroles and soups. Lasagna noodles build layered dishes that feed large groups. And specialty shapes like rotine or bodes keep meals interesting when you're re-eating from storage week after week. Instant rice deserves a spot right alongside pasta because it cooks in just minutes with minimal water. Provides the same nutrition as regular rice and takes up less space in your pantry than the traditional long cooking varieties. Ramen and instant noodles cost almost nothing. You can buy them for 10 to 20 cents per package during sales and, while they provide complete nutrition. They offer filling meals that satisfy hunger and boost morale when people are exhausted and stressed from crisis conditions. Instant mashed potatoes might not taste exactly like fresh potatoes, but they're lightweight, prepare in minutes with just boiling water. Provide comfort food that reminds people of normal times and store for years without any special requirements beyond keeping moisture out of the packaging. The problem that most people don't see coming is that the supply chain for these convenience foods is already breaking under pressure from multiple directions at once. Durum wheat shortages affect pasta production because this specific variety creates the texture and cooking properties that make quality pasta, and crop failures in major growing regions have reduced supplies significantly. Manufacturing plants struggle with the same labor shortages, equipment breakdowns, and energy costs hitting every other food processor. Packaging materials, especially the plastic films used for instant noodle packages, have become scarce and expensive as petroleum costs rise and production capacity fails to meet demand. Historical patterns from every previous crisis show that pasta and instant foods vanish first because they hit the sweet spot of affordability, ease of preparation, long shelf life, and universal appeal. During the COVID-19 panic buying in 2020, pasta aisles stayed empty for months in many areas. And instant noodles became so scarce that stores imposed purchase limits that didn't matter because shelves were bare anyway. You need to stockpile 40 to 50 pounds of various pasta types per person in your household, along with multiple cases of instant rice, ramen, and instant potatoes to provide quick meal options when you're too tired or stressed to cook complicated dishes. Don't forget the complimentary items that make these foods actually taste good: canned pasta sauce, jarred Alfredo sauce, bouillon cubes for flavoring, dried herbs and spices, and Parmesan cheese and shaker bottles that last months without refrigeration. Storage requirements are minimal, but important. Keep pasta in its original packaging placed inside sealed plastic containers or bins that protect against moisture, and keep out insects that would love to infest your stockpile. Check packages regularly for any signs of pest damage. Store everything away from heat sources that accelerate aging, and rotate your stock so older items get used before newer purchases. Prices have already increased 15 to 20% for pasta and 25% for instant foods over the past 2 years, with predictions that costs will continue climbing as wheat supplies tighten and manufacturing capacity struggles to keep up. Picture yourself 6 months into a major crisis. Power has been unreliable for weeks. You're exhausted from the stress and uncertainty. Your children are frightened and need reassurance. And the last thing you want to do is spend an hour preparing a complicated meal from scratch. That is exactly when you reach for a box of pasta that cooks in 10 minutes, or a package of instant noodles that's ready in 3. And you'll be incredibly grateful that you had the wisdom to stock your pantry today while these items were still available and affordable, instead of waiting until desperate neighbors were fighting over the last few boxes in empty stores. The mid-2026 food crisis isn't some maybe or possibly situation that might never happen. It's rushing toward us right now while most people sleep through the warnings and ignore every sign. You've just learned about the 7 critical food categories that will vanish first: rice and grains that feed billions, canned proteins that keep bodies strong, cooking oils and fats that provide concentrated energy, salt and sugar and honey that preserve life itself, dried milk that protects bones and teeth, canned vegetables and fruits that prevent devastating deficiencies, and pasta and instant foods that offer quick comfort during chaos. Hope is not a strategy, and wishing things will work out won't feed your children when shelves stay empty for months. Start today with one shopping trip where you buy extra cans and bags beyond your normal groceries. Then do it again next week and the week after until your pantry overflows with security. Learn proper storage methods, rotate your stock, and build the foundation that will keep your family fed while unprepared neighbors desperately search for scraps that no longer exist. The prepared will thrive with dignity and strength, sharing meals around tables while maintaining hope for better days ahead. The unprepared will suffer watching their loved ones go hungry, fighting crowds for nothing, living with the terrible knowledge that they had time to act but chose to wait. Which family will yours be when the crisis arrives at your door?